Hi friends, this is Vema Reddy. Today we will go and see how we can work with WORKATO functions. So, so let me share my screen. I have already created the recipe, all the things, assuming that you already have a high level understanding of what is recipe and how to create a recipe and all. So in this example today, what we are going to see here is how we are going to use the recipe functions, and also in this, I have used the variables and also the looping concepts and some couple of functions also I have used it. So first, let's try to understand what is a recipes. So whenever you want to create a reusable things, whenever you want to create a reusable functions, what you can do, Workato comes up with is a called recipe functions. So recipe functions. So this recipe functions is allows us to make a modular kind of designing. So this helps, this logic can be reused across multiple recipes, and also this can be called asynchronously or synchronously depending on the configuration you create. For example, if you want to go to the recipe here, and for example, now you want to create a new recipe function, you click on recipe, the start thing would be build a recipe function. So this recipe function, as soon as you create the recipe function and just put this as sum of recipes. So what I'm trying to do is digits in the number. So you can do, I'm just coming up with a very simple very simple example, where like you can just write, take a number, for example, number, if you give, 2 plus 5, 25, you can just calculate the sum of the digits is 2 plus 5 is equal to 7. So when you create a recipe function, what it will do, it will, the first trigger point will always will be function call, and the last one will be a return result. So you can define the structure of the inputs to the recipe function call. So this recipe function call, you can consider as a very similar if you're coming from a Boomi or TIPCO background. TIPCO is a process definition, call process, and this is if you come up Boomi, right? It's a kind of process call option. It's very similar that you can call the same process for multiple times. You can use with the process routes or wherever it is in Boomi. So now you have an option to define what is the structure of the input you want to pass it. For simplicity, I'm just going to create one field manually. That is the number I'm trying to give it. This number, I'm trying to take this as a integer here. So you can just put same number label or whatever it is. So or else it takes a default one, and you can also specify whether it's optional or mandatory. But I'm just keeping it as an optional. Okay, optional no. So that means a optional no means it's a mandatory, and you can see the asterisk mark here. This indicates that this is a mandatory field. And also you define the response. What is the response you want to say? I want to define the response as a sum. Okay, so this you can be able to, you can specify the again the type as here and return it. So you can see that I have specified the recipe function call, define the input structure as well as the response structure here. So it means I can pass in inputs and I can get the outputs. So now when you define the result, right, it always comes here. You can see that the result will be available. The structure will be available automatically in the return result. If you want to be take the input and give the output. Now if you want to define anything, okay, so you can use any of the actions here. For example, now I want to calculate the number of digits, no number of for the sum of the each digit. So how do I do that is, first I have to, there is a way I can convert. The simplicity option is I can just go through the loop and then calculate each and at the position and then get the values like this. So for that, what you need to do is you typically need the looping. But usually, like, what kind of options we have here is, if you see the looping, you have two options: repeat for each and repeat while. So repeat for each, it basically runs on the list. Now we don't have any list, so you can create a list and then I can loop through it, but now we have only repeat while. So it's I can say it's very similar to kind of a do while kind of a loop, where it can just enter and then execute something and then check if the condition is success, and then re-execute the same set of block. So now if you see this one, as soon as when you click on the repeat while, it's created a block of things here. So it means it loops it, and then it's enter it first, and if check the given condition, if this given condition is true, then it goes and get this one. So like this, it is just going. And so now we will use this one. For example, now I already have a number has been defined, but how do I convert the number? So right, number, I don't have any functions to write it. So what we can do is, so you can just have define one variables here. What do you mean by variable? So you can just variable is a kind of a internal memory variable. These variables will be exist till the execution of your main recipe or whatever it is, or sub recipe. Okay, it's a local scope to your recipe. If it's defined within the scope of the loop, it is a local variable within that block. So now if you define it here, it will be like thing. For example, now I want to define. Similarly, you can define the structure what you wanted to do here. So now I just wanted to define the two things here. Okay, add a variable. Click on here. You with this you can add as many number of variables. For example, now I want to add no number of string, number in string. Okay. Okay, now I want to convert the number into a string. So you can just put the number. How do you do the number to a string is, there is a way you can go to the text and also formula. But anyway, by default, when you can go with the formula, you can even convert this one. So when you click on this bar, so you can map the output from the previous. So this is the recipe call functions. This is what I get the input here. I pass it here, right? So this gives me the number, because you can see the ABC is stands for it is of string type, and this is 123 stands for number type. So when you map it here to here, this number will be converted into string. So then you can just go ahead and like search for the number. So now how you can go ahead and do this one is, you can just go ahead and so for this one variable, you can just go ahead and click on here and formula, and then you can just go ahead and do the splitting of here. So how do you do the splitting here is, you can do the split here. If you don't specify anything to split, what happens is you can the split it, and then you can get the length also here. First element, last element, like this. You can also get length also. You can get this one. So you get a complete documentation over here. So now what you can do, if you want to execute how this returns, right? So don't do, you just right click and click on this as a skip, so that this will be blocked. This is kind of commented now. Now you want to see the logic, like this function is really executing what we want. You can just go ahead and log something. You can see, so the logger by WORKATO, so where you can just put the same condition here and paste this one here. You can say I already copied using shortcut, nothing I did extra. So you can see this is the function. It you want to add a comment, you can just put the comment also here, add a comment, and so the comment will be displayed. For example, you can say display number of digits. Okay, you can just put number of digits. So like this, you can do that during the testing. So you can now you have an option to test also. For example, just save it and then click on test recipe. So since you are expected to take some inputs to the function is expecting, for example, I want to give as numbers as 555. Just test it. So once you test it, it executes, and you can see each and every output of the variable. So now you define the variable, the number is converted into a string, and then you calculate this. You can see the number is coming as a 5. For example, if you just pass a test recipe, you just give this one. Let's see how many numbers it gives. You see, number of length is 12. Okay. Now what I need to do is I need to get the position. I need to loop through the number of length here. For example, now this is a 12. Go to the number and loop this many number of times and get the position of this one, each of the position, and do one sum here. So for that calculation, right? So first one I need to do is first write a function that can go ahead and get the value at the given thing. Okay, now I don't want to do anything here. So now it go here. How do you do that? Is a kind of a substring kind of a thing. What you can do something like slice is get part of a string. So when you say get part of a string, you can see that you get a complete documentation here. Okay, you can see when you click on this dot get slice start index and length. So when you say the index of the first character, so start index is the index of the first character to return, length of the string to return from the start index. For example, if you give dot slice like for example 0 comma 3, it takes always like index start from 0. It means from JEA, the first three characters will get it. So like this, it goes and get. So now we need to go and get at every index position. Okay, start index and next index. For example, now we will give start index as a 0. Okay, now you can just see, and then when you test the recipe, you just give some unique values so that to see whether it is correctly getting the value at the right index. So now I have given first as, because the number is 1, 2, 3, 4, I given the value as 1. So like that, you can just go ahead and test this recipe to give the value at the index 1. So since we already passed the value, it just keeps it and stores it. We can see that we are expecting to 2. Now we are know that how to get the index at every position. So now we will just enable this looping again, unscape. So now we can just set a condition, right? How many number of times you want. So you for that you define one variable here, add one more variable here, you put number of digits. Right, you put number of digits as integer here, add variable here, and then you write the function what we written over here. So write under parameters. So if you want, you can make a big screen. So you can drag and drop it here, and then you can just use the split and then use length. So it automate tool will give you auto population. Now you define one more thing called, you define one more variable called sum. Okay, sum of digits. So you just take this again as an integer and then you can just here. So the default value, I want to put it as 0 here. So now you can put default value. So now you can see in one way, one activity, you can see that I have defined many variables you can define. So now you can just use these variables over here. So now you can just tell that, okay, I want to run this loop until my variables length is completely ends. For example, how many number of times I need to run the loop? I need to run the loop as number of the digits. Number of digits is this. Okay, number of digits. So I need to put the I. So every time you use a loop, right? So you see the index called here. So I need to put that index over here, index less than, until less than. Maybe you can even put less than because index start from 0. So I can just only use the less than. So either you can specify condition different ways and you can say put true, is true. Or else what you can do, you can add one more condition. For example, if you don't want to do that one, right? For example, or else you can just, instead of true, you can see that less than, you will get also option here. So here you can put the number of digits as here. So here you can just put the text here simple. So I less than equal to number of digits. If this condition is true, then you're good. So you can just, you can be able to, but only the problem is you cannot see the log at every iteration. So that you cannot see, you want to use that, you have to send the logger to loggers. So the logger will see in the process recipe level. But now what I want to do for every index, what I wanted to do, I want to do the update a variable. I wanted to do the sum calculation. So you can use a variable here. So you can see that you have a lot of options are there. One of the things called update variable. So select the drop down, whatever the variable that you define here, it comes. Sum of digits I select here. Okay. So now what I need to do is I need to do sum is equal to I equal to I plus one, something kind of thing. So the first thing what I need to do is sum. Okay. Previous values I will be appending it. This is sum. And then what I need to do is in the given string, I want to take the at index position. Where do we get the index? In the repeat loop, I get the index. So you just put here cursor and then put this one. So now for simplicity, for calculation purpose, to check the result. So now you can return the result as this is a variable until the loop continues all the times, and then you can write that output from the sum of the variables here. So now let's run the recipe. Let's run the recipe to 1, 2, 3, 4. How much it will be? 4 plus 3, 7, 7 plus 2, 9, 9 plus 1 is 10. So we are expecting the sum as a 10. Says the number of digits, no method split. So it says number of digits. I think we might have no method split. Okay, it says it failed at this level. What is the value we put? Okay, so there is no other debug information. Number of digits, no method split for 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we'll see what we put here. Number of digits. Sum of digits. Okay, I think we should put this thing as number. This number is already a string only. Okay, we shouldn't put the number is of type integer. So we should put the variables here itself. I want to put this as number in string. Or else if you want to, maybe in that case it doesn't make, and because I'm not able to map it in the same one. So what I can do is there is another way. What you can do is you can just, because the number, right? So number, it's not, split function is not applicable for number, only it applicable for string. So in that case, what you can do, you can write 2 underscore s. So this will converts the number to string, and then string you can do. So in that case, we can take out this number. But anyway, this is also fine. So now just save it and then test the recipe. You pass the same value here. So we got now is you just click on the view here. So it says update variable, sum of digits. Okay. Sum of digits, error calc. So now at least you can see that it's went into loop. And if you just click on the index, is the first index is in the loop, index starts from 0. So you can see there is one more variable called is first equals to true. It means there is a two predefined variables for looping, either for each loop or else as this while loop kind of thing. It defines two predefined variables. One is called index and is called is first true. The index starts from 0, and another variable, it says is first is true. If it is index is 0, then only this value will be given as a true. Okay, now let's see what is the value. It says error calculating input for field sum of digits. WORKATO types Unicode strings. Unicode string can't be coerced into integer. So it says it is not able to do the conversion of, because these functions sometimes until you get comfortable to understand this error message is a little kind of tricky. But what it's trying to tell that Unicode string can't be coerced. It is not able to convert that number into string into number. So let's see what was the issue here. So here, okay, sum of the digits is already a number here. What we specified? Yeah, sum of the digits already a number here. The number in string is ABC. Okay, I think maybe after we get this one, we might need to take the 2 underscore I. So this will convert this particular string to integer. So then so that we can add this one to this one. Now let's try this one. So now you can see that it has been completely into. So by default, you will see the output of this loop, right? Now click on the loop will be run for 4. Index is 4. What is the value we given input function is here? We can see that output, or you can just click on expand. You can see that 1, 2, 3, 4. But by the time 4 comes here, now what is the value here? And you see that it always shows you the output of the last iteration. The iteration might have been completed 4 times. Okay, 3 times it completed. Okay, 3 times it completed, but now the times it completes the 4th time, it got failed. Okay, that's why it is showing, because after iteration increase, it didn't come inside because the condition did not go through. It was stopped it. So now you can see that the output, you can see the result is 10. So if you just go ahead and result, you can just give this number to some random number. You see that how quick it will happens. Okay, maybe it might give some error saying that this number is not valid for the integer. So if it is give beyond this one. So let's see the sum of this one is how it is. You can see this much. So this is, you can see that how simple. If we notice one thing here, we did not use a single custom script also, but this is a very kind of basic Java kind of thing what we do. When you do this Boomi kind of things, it's a looping and these things without custom scripting, small custom scripting here and there, like you have to use it, but without the custom scripting, you cannot use it as simple. Like you have to always dependent on the map functions where you have to define a profile, all these things. But eventually we're also defining here as a schema here, but it just we defining this as a we cannot say it's a defined as schema. We can just define it's a variables here, or the variable structure you are storing. You can correlate these variables as a properties there. So this, if you define this property inside this one is considered document, or it's defined as a process property something. But without anything, where it's very easy to use these functions, and only thing is you just need to have a little understanding about this, how these functions are there, like how do you use the functions, and how to use these functions with a specific type of data you are handling. For example, string, what type of string applicable, number, what type of number it is applicable for, it is a yeah, there is a called hash, like what type of applicable methods are there for hash. Like hash is nothing but kind of a list of kind of thing. So our map, you can JSON terms, you can call it as a map data type. So like this, there are a lot of functions has been written, a lot of functions has been given. So if you just go to any one of the functions, you see how many functions are there. So if you are able to get some little hands-on on these functions, so that you will be able to see the functions. You can see just recommended automatically depends on the type of this function. It shows that because the data input type is integer here, it is all showing the functions with respect to the which are applicable to the integer. But if you don't want, you can see convert to different data type, conditional functions, you can see if conditions. So but if you so you can also if you just put on here the cursor, right, you can see that now if you want to define a current date, you just now need to type, and now it will gives the current date. So like this, you can see how many of what kind of operations, like a lot of functions are there. You can do a lookup, null value, skip. You can see a lot of WORKATO inbuilt predefined things for which can do the encryption and decryption kind of, and hashing kind of things and all. So not only this, but there is a lot of, if you just put the array kind of things, you can see present, join, all these things. You can see a lot of conditions you can see. So I hope you learned something with this in how to use the actions with the variable actions and the logger action and loop repeat. and do the summing, and then how you can use the class function. If you want to just use something to this, want to call this function, you just go to the project, you can define one scheduler kind of function. So you just create, I might have created here, you just create the recipe. So you can say that the trigger from you can take a look at the scheduler kind of thing, so that you can just take the default scheduler and you can just call action here, and you can say the function, you just type the function. So you can say recipe function by WORKATO. So using this, you can have a lot of options to call. You can say call a recipe function, asynchronous, return data from recipe function, because when you use asynchronous, you can able to use the calling recipe to get the data from the recipe function, or wait for async call. So like, there is a lot of things are there, but you can just use this one in our case, because we are doing sum of digits in the number. Okay, I think I don't know which one we created right now. You can just see, as soon as you define, it takes you to give the number. For example, you give the number as this, and then that's all. You can get the output. You don't need to even here put anything. You can see the output here directly. Now you can just test the recipe. Cannot call a stop recipe. What does mean that this recipe, right? So this recipe, it says that this is not started. So it means in order to call this recipe, right? You just click on this one. You can go to duplicate tab. So go to the recipe function here, and the recipe function should be running way in order to use come from the main one. So go back, calculate sum of the digits. Is this the one we are using? Yes. Copy this, go to sum. Okay, this is the one. Just go here and start the recipe, so that the recipe is running now. Okay, you can see that how many times we have run also. You'll be able to track everything, but you can just go here and then test the recipe now. Now we shouldn't show that error. So sometimes it says this one, but when you run it, you see the view, right? It is the latest run data. Okay, can't call stop recipe. So again, it is telling. Now let's see, just sometimes you case, just click on refresh, and then sum of digits in a number. Are we not running this one? Yes, we are running. Go to test jobs. Okay, I think it was not loaded properly, I think earlier. So now after we refresh one, you can see that, okay, you can see this has been called, is it because we are not started this recipe, we are just test the recipe, so that it won't trigger, it only transfer only one time. If you want, again, you have to click them. So it's typically we are using a scheduler, but it won't run for every 5 minutes. The default configuration, it even though says this configuration only applicable when you typically start the recipe. Start the recipe is means is a kind of automated mode. So now you can see that you can just expand. This is a parent job. You can see the job details also over here. You can just click on this recipe version and all the things, and you can see the little more details also. When was the job ID? You can see that job ID is here. This is the job ID. Okay. When it was started, how long it took time. Okay. You see that this is the job URL. You can, whenever you want to send out an email notification, something, you always keep the recipe URL, so that they can directly navigate to the particular instance. The way how we used to do it in Boomi with execution ID with by appending that Boomi URL. So similarly, you can do the similar things. So you can use the sum is returning as a file, because you are an output here. So now if you go to here, you just click on the expand side, you can see you are calling the recipe function. The recipe function ID is this one. That is the parameters you are passing, and this output is being written over here. But if there is, since this is a just simple callable function, this debug will be enabled for app connectors, application specific actions, if anything, whether you want to call NetSuite connector or Salesforce connector. So you can see that what is the transport level information it is also passing, and what is the underlying this recipe the connector actions is calling the corresponding endpoints. Also, you'll be able to see everything on the debug level. Now you can see that this step has created a child job. You can just click on this one. It executes the child job recipe also. If you go to the child job, it also shows you the child job related information. When you click on here, you can see that it has a parent job. What is a parent job ID? What is a parent recipe ID? So recipe ID, every recipe that you create, there will be one ID will be created. You can see that the recipe, for even the recipe function also, there is one thing will be gets created. And these are the parameters we are passing. So that's how you can able to track the execution also here, and also you can also search the execution based on the recipe functions. For example, if you go here, and you can also add some kind of the way what you do the tracking fields in Boomi, where you can specify same thing and all, but here you can define the functions, and you can track all the inputs also. For example, now you can just go ahead and maybe you have to stop this recipe in order to set these values. By default it shows the time and description, but you can also add additional values also for tracking information. For example, if you are making an entry for the you're creating an account, so you can add a kind of values for the what is a customer ID, like a customer name or customer email address. You can see, so when you search it here, it will be easily visible here. It automatically filter the executions. There are other things you can do the filtering also for this particular thing, but as and when you can see failed processing, all these things and all. But once you add those things also, you can be able to, you can add functions, you can methods here, you can display the tables as and when the options is, because now we can see only export job. If we just click on stop, and this option will be changing, and you can add the customized job report. So by default description will be there, and you can the description, you can see all the information is a parent job and the calling recipe. You can see that it automatically shows this is the description, input parameters high level, but you want customized specific parameters to be passed, and then you can just go ahead also define the what is input parameter. For example, you want to define an input number here, customized job report, you can just put. So here you get the same output what we get the things also. You can just recipe functions here. Okay, you can see here from the parameters, you can just map it the number. And also you can add one more column. You can just put sum also here. For the sum, you can map it from directly from the output here. Okay, apply the changes, start the recipe. See, as soon as you make the change, the description will go away. So now the description is running. Now you can just do for maybe probably you can just pass. You just run this one. Okay, now you can go here and refresh this one. One job could have been triggered, and it will show the input and output. What was the input and what was the output it was in. The input, this is a sum. Like you can do the input one more time, you can see that output. So you can search based on these values also. So using the recipe function is very useful, especially when you are using the loopings. When you do looping, you don't see what inputs are coming, but at least when you log the recipe functions, you will see the recipe functions job history. You can see that how many number of times the recipe called for a given parent recipe, a parent a job ID, like so that way you will be able to see how many times that sub process or recipe function has been executed. Okay, you can see this because it takes, because everything is a cloud, right? So it takes a while for to load the data from the sub process executions, all the things. Yeah, this is what I just wanted to show you in this. Like we got to learn a lot, I think, in this one, like how to use the recipe functions, how to call that recipe function from the parent, and then how to use the different functions, how to use variables, how to use the while loop kind of concepts in the Workato. Okay, I think that's what I wanted to cover. I hope this will be helpful. or in case if we have anyone of any doubts or something, please reach out to me through YouTube channel. Thank you so much.